Bryan, thank you for coming out today. Can you introduce us and tell your profession and where you're from?
My name is Bryan Massey. I'm currently department chair at the University of Central Arkansas, as well as a professor of art and sculpture. Originally from North Carolina, I took a job here in 1988 and been here ever since.
For someone encountering your work for the first time, could you share how your journey towards becoming a professional artist began? What led you to stone carving and your large scale sculpture as your primary forms of expression?
Initially, I wanted to be an illustrator for Hallmark. That was my dream. That's the reason I was majoring in commercial art at the time, which they now call graphic design. Um, I didn't get into sculpture until maybe a year and a half later while I was doing my undergraduate work at East Carolina University. And I was on the summer campus doing summer school at East Carolina, and I heard this noise behind this large wall. So I peeped around just out of curiosity. And this little man, about 5'1", and some students were struggling with this piece of stone that was sort of teetering on this flatbed truck. So I said, "Well, you guys need some help?" And they said, "Yeah." So I put my shoulder underneath the stone. I nudged it back on the truck. And at the time, I knew he was a professor of sculpture. He said, "Man, you're strong." He said, "We need strong guys in our sculpture program." He said, "What's your major?" And so I told him it was commercial art at the time. And he said, "Well, have you got some electives?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Why don't you take my survey course in the fall?" So I took the fall survey course in Sculpture 1. As I say, the rest is history. And I got involved in stone carving because that's what he did at the time. He did stone and steel. And so I got involved in that. And my very first stone piece I did in this class was a marble piece that I still have to this day. Because that got me excited about stone carving. Um, Getting to large scale pieces, I didn't really do large scale pieces probably until '94 in my career because I didn't have the facility or the space to work large scale. So my first large scale piece I did as a competition for a uh, competitive in Mississippi. And then I did that same concept for four other competitions, thinking I would get at least one of those large scales in, and I got all four. So I ended up making four of the same sculptures at the same time. So that got me into large scale reproduction and how I perfected that skill set.
All right. Your work involves an extraordinary range of materials: stone, metal, cast bronze, fabricated steel, each one with their own demands. Could you speak to the particular challenges and rewards of working with such weighty and enduring materials?
I like working in stone. I like working in metal, not so much in wood. I choose those materials because not only of their weight, but also of their longevity as far as consistency. You can make a paper sculpture and put it outside. It gets wet, it's ruined, it's gone. Bronze and stone withstands the elements of the weather. Um, I've got pieces that I did years ago that are still withstanding, standing in the same place, still in good shape. So I like using those materials because they are more related to the weather and they're long lasting.
All right, the work featured in the visual symphony is a powerful example of physical and emotional weight your sculptures carry. Can you talk about the role music plays in your creative process, either as inspiration, background, or subject, and how it might shape the emotional resonance of your sculptures?
Well, I don't play an instrument, um, but all of my children did play in school. And in the studio, I keep music playing in the background. And it doesn't matter whether it's reggae or jazz or classical or R&B. I like hearing that noise in the background. It helps me to create. I don't need it to create, but it helps the creative juices flow in what I like to do. Um, and in my music, well, in my art, I try to portray music in a way that people normally don't see it. I mean, you look at this violin here. I don't play the violin, yet I want people to see it in a different way. Seeing a violin made out of stone, which is not functional, but yet representational.
All right. If you had to choose one musical piece, classical, jazz, or gospel, or otherwise, as a companion to your work you're showing in this exhibition, what might they be and why?
Well, I like all genres of music, Music is vital, like the arts, is an unspoken language. I would probably choose classical music because the violin it means a lot to me. People look at it and some may see a violin, depending on the music, some may see a fiddle, and some may even see a guitar. So it's all subject to what the viewer wants to see in my artwork. And I've never been the one to make something to make a viewer say, "Oh, this is what this is." I want them to look at it and say, get their own interpretation.
Right. Music can range from structured logic of a Bach fugue to the freedom of freeform improvisation of Coltrane. With your sculptural compositions carefully constructed, yet often abstract, where along the spectrum would you place your work?
Probably in the spectrum of more abstract with a hint of realism. As I mentioned earlier, you really can't play a stone violin or a stone guitar or a stone fiddle. Um, but it gives the viewer an innovative way of seeing things in a different light. Uh, you don't associate guitars, violins, trumpets out of bronze or metal or, well, I say metal out of heavy metals because bronze is made out of brass, but you don't see those types of instruments made from wood or stone that are non-functional as I presented.
Right. Both music and sculpture speak across boundaries of language and culture. In your view, what is it about sound and form, especially when combined, that gives them such profound emotional and spiritual impact, particularly in the movement we find ourselves in today? Moment we find ourselves in today.
Well, art is a universal language. It
Hmm.
crosses boundaries and cultures altogether. You may not like the rhythm or the sound, but yet it's important to know that rhythm and sound is very important to how art is perceived. Um, I don't have any scientific proof behind this, but I've heard a minister once say that music has colors, and each note has a distinct color to it. And I'm like, okay, if music has colors, and I can associate the colors in music with what I do in my artwork, whether it's alabaster or limestone or soapstone, and produce a color that the music is trying to perform.
Right. This exhibition invites a conversation between artists and mediums. Are there any artists, historical or temporary, whose work you feel remains in dialogue with your own, either through materials, themes, or shared artistic mission?
There are there are four sculptures that I really looked at when I was coming up as a young artist. One of the first ones I came across was Isamu Noguchi, who was a Japanese sculptor, and I liked the way he was using free forms of stone. Henry Moore, who's a English sculptor, who was using more abstract figures in his figures instead of doing natural work. And you see a lot of things happening in my work as well. Um, Constantine Brancusi, who was a Romanian-born sculptor who lived in France. I would look at all the books that were written in French. I couldn't read French,
Mhm.
but I would look at his work, and what caught my eye with his work was how he combined his bases and his sculptures as a single piece, not just a sculpture and then create the base for it to sit on, but he did that to make it a single piece. uh, when I was looking up at other artists, I'm like, it's got to be someone that looks like me that's out there doing what I like to do. And that's when I came across Richard Hunt, who recently passed. Got a chance to meet him and go to the studio and talk to him. He would come down here and visit on occasions, and just the nature of being a storyteller. A lot of Richard's work is a narrative about what life is, and so you see a lot of that in my work as well.
All right. You've refined and expanded your practice over several decades. What continues to challenge or energize you creatively? And what questions are you asking in your studio right now?
What makes me continue to want to create is I've got a plethora of just ideas and concepts that I have not even gotten out there yet. Uh, Primarily because I didn't have the skill set back in the day to do what I wanted to do. I found myself going back to some of my early ideas and concepts, but I didn't have a good understanding how stone worked how metal worked, how to cast things. That keeps me going. And I ask myself in the studio, what can I do to get better? I mean, even after almost 40 years, I'm always asking, how can I make this better? How can I make this more interesting to the viewer with that sort of wow factor, without all the flashy lights and things that some artists rely on? I want the medium to be the be the forefront. I want the people to look at the medium and say, okay, how do you do that with stone? How do you do that with wood? So that's my question. How can I get better at what I'm doing?
Right. You were born in North Carolina
Yes.
and have exhibited across the U.S. and internationally, and have created major public works throughout Arkansas. How do geographic and cultural environments you've lived in and worked in shape the tone, materials, or themes in your sculpture?
That's the good thing about the nature of the material that I use. It sort of crosses all geographical or cultural divides because um, whether I do a stone piece that sits outside in the heat of Arkansas, that same stone piece could sit in the city in Arizona. Um, the metal pieces that I do may have a theme to it according to what they ask for in like a competition. Like an example, when I did the saxophone for the Grammy Museum, I knew there was a musical theme to that, so I came up with a musical instrument for that thing. Um, when I did the piece for Algonquin, Illinois, there was something to deal with the human nature. So I did a piece called Adam and Eve mourning over the soul of Cain. So it all depends on what the theme is. But as far as the medium, I think I can just use my medium anywhere, anywhere.
Right. As chair of the Department of Art and Design at UCA, you are a dedicated educator and you've mentored countless young artists. How does teaching inform your creative practice and vice versa?
Teaching sort of keeps me on the creative edge.
Mhm.
I'm always looking for ideas and concepts that I can present to students to do in the classroom studio. Um, a lot of times, in order to demonstrate, I have to be on my game so that he knows what he's talking about when it comes to how to use a material. And then sometimes I look at what they're doing and say, okay, I could use some of that concept in my work, and sort of feed off back and forth. I teach them a few things; they teach me some things. So I've never been one in any of my studio class when I'm teaching to censor or to tell a student you can't do this subject matter
Mhm.
or you can't do this unless the material is not conducive to what they want to do.
Right. Do you find that your work will inspire your students that you've shown them?
It does. I try to bring in examples of what I've done in the past, particularly if like we're doing a stone carving project. I'll bring in two or three different stone pieces so they can take a look at it to see exactly how they can reproduce something in stone at different levels.
Right. Your practice is deeply spiritual and often marked by a recurring Trinity motif. Can you speak more to how your faith informs the way you approach your materials, your process, and ultimately what you hope your viewers take from your work?
My faith is very important to me. My Christianity and my salvation, I take that very seriously. Because I'm creating things that was formed by the Creator Himself,
Mhm.
taking substances from the earth that are already here and manipulating, modifying those things to create something that I feel that I can take a story, tell a story about, be a narrative to someone else about. Um, this is how I see faith. This is how I see God as my heavenly Father. Um, some people may never go to church, may never read a Bible, but they will go to a gallery, they will go to a museum, they will see art or listen to music. And that's such a powerful venue that we have to get across our message, uh, at least for me, and dealing with that. Because if you notice a lot of my work when I sign, I've never seldom signed my name on work.
Mhm.
I usually use what I call the Trinity mark. It represents the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. So you'll see a lot of times these three markings in my work, or seven markings in my work, they're all related to my spiritual faith.
All right. Is there any other works that you have numerology referenced in? You mentioned the number seven. Do you have the number 12 of government
Mm.
or
I've
uh,
one of the pieces I've done, which is a tribute to Ismail Noguchi, which is on the grounds here at the Fine Arts, uh, has those markings that represent the Trinity.
mhm,
9 times out of 10, it'll be about the Trinity,
all right.
or the 7 days of creation, or 12 pillars of the 12 tribes of Judah. So
Mhm.
those are the numbers I use a lot: 3, 7, 12.
All right. Hearn Fine Art is celebrating 37 years of preserving, showcasing, and uplifting stories embedded in visual art. There's one takeaway that you have, or emotional impression you hope someone new for your work, someone new to your work, to walk away with. What would it be?
The wow factor.
Mm-hmm.
Question themselves, how did he do that? And that's what keeps me going in the studio. Keep perfecting my skill set, getting better at what I do. I mean, my students are amazed when I tell them I'm trying to get better. They're like, better at what? You look pretty good to me. I'm like, yeah, but you see things that you think are great. I see things that could be improved upon.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be that wow factor. Is how did he do that?
The striving for greatness drives us
Driving
all.
greatness.
All right. Have you ever seen one of your students influenced by your drive to?
Yes.
Could you
Uh,
speak to some of that, some of those experiences?
I had one student that he was actually on the verge of being dismissed from my program.
Mm-hmm.
And I convinced the faculty. I said, let me work with him for a year, get him back on track. And I did that. Got him into a couple of early exhibitions and shows locally. And now he's just taking off. He does a lot of stainless steel sculptures.
Mm-hmm.
He has a few in downtown Little Rock. His name is Hunter Brown. Uh, and he's just doing amazing things with his skill set.
Right. Well, Bryan, thank you again for sharing your time, insights, and practice. Your contribution to this exhibition adds grounded and resonant energy that expands the visual and sonic conversations happening in Fern Fine Art in the gallery. It's been a pleasure interviewing you and seeing your craft and you talking about your craft.
Thank y'all. I appreciate it.